Welcome to the Professional Priestess Podcast, the place where medicine carriers learn to hold wealth, visibility, and devotion without contraction. Together, let's part the veil. I want to introduce you to the humans behind the magic. Let's speak to the oracles walking their divine path of service, and the alchemists transmuting density into divinity, all while navigating a very human experience. Together, we will explore shadows and sovereignty, sex and spirit. We will go deep into your soulpreneur business as initiation and visibility as reclamation. I'm your host, Lindsay Schroeder, professional priestess and spiritual mentor for leaders, healers, and those called to take their place at the forefront of the feminine revolution. Every episode is a transmission, every conversation an activation. Welcome to Season 2. This is your invitation to remembrance.
Today on the Professional Priestess Podcast, I have Morgan Garza, who I've had the opportunity of collaborating with and working with before through a collective that we both love to support. And today I am so excited to just get to talk what we want to talk and get deep into your own magic and your own work. So thank you so much, Morgan, for being here with me today. And I cannot wait to talk shadow work in such depth. Welcome.
Yes. Shadow work is everything. And I am so excited to share on a deeper level because this is what I have unexpectedly centered my career around. And I didn't ever think that I would be doing shadow work professionally full time all the time, but it is something that has become so pivotal to my life, my process, my teaching, just my lifestyle in general. And it's the best. I'm truly obsessed with it. And I know people are like, who wants to wake up and tackle their trauma? Like me every day, all day. And it's not somewhere that you have to live. Like we don't always live in healing. We want to be living life and having fun and doing things like that. So just to dispel the first misconception, shadow work isn't something that you have to do all of the time. It's just like get in, get out, get on with it.
I think that's so important. I know the hamster wheel of healing is a thing that happens to so many, for so many, where you're stuck in that place of constantly just seeking the thing to fix, to solve the solution. So I do think that's a really important place to start of when we talk about, especially us finding our specific niches and finding our callings and being given our divine missions. It's yes, we might spend the majority of our time operating and offering, teaching, holding space in that work, but for the average individual, shadow work or healing shouldn't consume the entirety of your existence for an extended period of time. So let's start in that space and tell us what it looks like when a client or a potential client is getting to that point. What are some of those signs that someone can see in their life where it's maybe shadow work would be a good thing to look at right now? And what are the steps that they take? How do they start that process?
The first signs are usually annihilation. Like something is really not working anymore. And you feel totally out of sorts. The things that used to make you happy aren't making you happy. The things that used to be easy and come with ease and joy are now feeling like you're walking through mud and sludge. And so much of where people start out in this is what we all experience so often. And just that feeling of disconnection, that feeling of thinking and knowing that something is wrong, but not knowing exactly what, not being able to pinpoint it, and seeing all of these certain things in your life start to unravel in a way, start to dissolve. And I love to think about it as we lock a monster in our basement, right? And eventually the monster is going to get really angry, want to get out. It grows in power because we are ignoring it. We are acting like it doesn't exist. We are totally discounting the darkness, the shadow, the pain, the trauma, the shame, all of that. We hide it away. And eventually that monster is going to find a way out. The shadow is very crafty at finding its way, not necessarily into the light, but into awareness. So that could look like relationships dissolving, fighting a lot with your partner, feeling really out of sorts with your own health, not being able to sleep, grinding your teeth, having a disconnection from your joy and not being able to feel just like truly happy, or like something super specific of wanting to quit a job or leave a scenario or just feeling like really not okay. And a lot of what we're dealing in the shadow is from long time ago. Like we build up, it festers, it gets bigger, it gains power, and eventually something tiny is setting us off, but really, of course, that's just the fuse, right? The whole stick of dynamite is years and years and years of stuffing down, of bottling, of denying, of self-sabotage, of self-abandonment. So there's a whole spectrum of things to look out for if you are wondering if shadow work is good for you. And honestly, like, yes, shadow work is good for you. Like, everybody needs shadow work. Absolutely. No matter where you're at in your life, no matter if you're at your absolute rock bottom right now or on the top of a mountain that you've never been that high, it is always so, so important to do shadow work. And again, like I said, get in, get out, get on with it, but to really be open, because what we see in the shadow is denial, is avoidance, is not wanting to admit to the shame. And there's so many different types of shadows, but I think one of the biggest shadows that keeps us from doing the work is the shame of something that we've done, the way that we've acted, something that we've said, something that we've avoided for so long. And so we don't even want to admit that we've done it. We don't even want to admit that we're capable of that, because if I can be capable of doing that, then what does that say about me? And whether you've cheated on a partner or been a really bad employee or screwed someone over or been really terrible to yourself, admitting that is the hardest thing. So rather than admit it, we avoid it. And then that builds up and other shadows come in and they're all having this like dark shadow party. And eventually you can't tell one thing from the other because there's so much in there. So everybody needs shadow work. It'll show up at different times in your life in different ways, but there is not one single person on this planet who doesn't poop and who doesn't need shadow work.
And is shadow work something that you recommend working majority or only with a practitioner with a specific protocol, with like a methodology or a template? Is shadow work something that someone could, with a little bit of guidance, with like us making a little bullet point for them, be able to start on their own? Are there any like safety precautions that someone's going, "Oh yeah, haven't done any shadow work"? I definitely identify with a couple of those things, or maybe all of the things that you're saying, and they have that empowered moment of like, okay, now that I'm hearing it, like I want to take a step. And as we both know, that moment, that momentum is a lot of times like you need to lean into that. So tell us a little bit about the safety precautions or the steps or how someone gets started, and if you only recommend they start with a practitioner.
Yeah, anyone can get started. I mean, you can get started on shadow work without a practitioner by just simply looking at your triggers. What is continuously coming up? What is something that is a pattern, a habit, something that you see like this common thread through? Like, I always react this way in this situation. I never used to be bothered by this, and now I'm
Mm.
flying off the handle when something like this happens. Really just looking at the surface, because what we don't want to do with shadow work is become a shadow hunter. It's like going into the grave yard with a Ouija board and
Mhm.
being like, who wants to come out and play? Like, you're digging up things that are not necessarily ready to be dug, and you might get lost in the dark. So, starting with what's just bubbling to the surface. What are your current triggers? What is something that is really just like grinding your gears, rubbing you the wrong way, just throwing you off whenever it happens? And then looking at what kind of patterns is that connected to? How is this trigger connected to something else that happened in the past? And when does this happen? And you start making all of these little connections. And I like to think about it as you're in this room of darkness and you have all of these single points of light, and they seem totally disconnected and you don't see how any of them make sense together. And then all of a sudden someone flips on the lights and you're like, oh, there's this entire network down here and this is connected to that
Mhm.
and this happened because of that. And so you start seeing that it's kind of like this Russian doll, this nesting
Mm.
of shadows and triggers and patterns and people and behaviors and shame, and all of these things come together to create this network of your shadow map. But of course, once you start moving through it, I think it is a really smart and logical idea to have support. Obviously, you might be uncovering deep-seated childhood trauma, something that you have blocked out with your brain, something that has been so scary for you to address and go towards that you have completely avoided it. And if that avoidance has brought you into this space where you start seeing things breaking down in your current life, then I think it's really important to have support, whether that's a practitioner like myself, whether that's therapy, whatever that looks like that makes you comfortable knowing that you're not going in alone is really important because there's so much you can do by yourself. You can do journaling, you can do tapping, you can do meditations, you can do journeys, you can go on just like a meditative walk and think about all of the things. But once you really start connecting the patterns, you're going to be going back in time when the majority of your shadows started. And we are born with our largest shadow wherever your Chiron placement is in your house and sign. And that shadow that you were born with, that's in your birth chart, in your natal chart, in astrology, plays out through your entire life. And until you really understand what that core wound is, you can't become the embodiment of Chiron, which is the wounded healer. And of course, you're going to collect all of these different shadows as you go through life. Somebody dies, you change stuff like your personality, your identity, all of these things change as you go through life. You collect all these shadows, but they're all being compounded with this original shadow that you were born with. And understanding that truly unlocks like the entire timeline of life because you start seeing how many ways you allowed that, enabled it, and you created all of these coping mechanisms around it because that was your first shadow. You learned that wound very, very first when you were very, very young. And then you had all of these validating experiences around it. So there are a lot of ways that you can do shadow work on your own, but I think it's also really important to work with someone to go even deeper.
I want to hear more about the Chiron. This is not something that I've heard about, and I would love to learn more about the original shadow. And obviously, like growing up Catholic, I have the comparison to the original sin, the like born with this
Hmm.
original sin. So, can you give us a little bit more information about that in a general sense? And then, if there is a specificity, whether that's like a client that you've worked with or your own, that you can give us to kind of like grip on a little bit further and really place it into the detail of what what can an original shadow look like as that label or identifier, and then showing us kind of how that starts here, but then we use our RAS and we're like primed for that and we're seeing it over and over and we're like selecting that and it's starting to turn from one experience into this like long-term story, and I can see like where it goes, but I'm so curious about that origin point.
Yes, girl. Okay,
Mm,
so first of all, the original sin and the original shadow, there are so many parallels between witchcraft and astrology and
oh, yeah.
Christianity and Catholicism. So just like want to honor that connection right there. Because same, I was raised very Catholic, and now that I'm a witch, I'm like, y'all, we're really
Right.
kind of doing the same thing.
We are really in
But
so many ways,
so
like, obviously, there's a lot of ways where it's not the same, but in so many ways,
yeah,
like, especially
in
when the
so many
church is
ways.
like, "You guys with your spells and your" I'm like, "You with your altar and your" I'm like, "You guys taught me." Like, I got obsessed with this,
You
like,
taught
here.
me.
Yes. So,
Yeah,
deep
no, blood
agreement
of
there.
Christ, body of Christ,
Yes.
incense, anointing oils.
Yes.
There's a
Yes.
lot of parallels, but yeah, for sure. So Chiron though, oh my gosh. Okay,
Yes.
so when I started discovering Chiron in terms of shadow work many years ago, I was like, this is it. Like, this is the key to unlock because what I see more often than anything in leading shadow work, which I've led thousands of people through at this point over the years, they don't know where to start and they're afraid of what they'll find. And the Chiron aspect takes the I don't know where to start question
Oh,
totally
no.
out because it tells you exactly in great detail what your deepest and original shadow is. So Chiron is the wounded healer. It's an asteroid that orbits our solar system and it is the wounded healer because Chiron is this being that has great and deep and foundational wounds, but it learns through embodiment, through practice, through acceptance, and mostly through self love that that wound is also its greatest power. It is the point in which it can help other people because it has helped itself. So once you
Mhm.
understand what your deepest wound is, that also becomes like your magic wand to help other people going through the same thing and to be this beacon in a sense, this lighthouse for other people who are experiencing something similar. So your experience can then have a ripple effect to others to help them through theirs. So when you find your Chiron house and sign, it tells you exactly what you were born with, what you are going to struggle with the most, what you are going to have the most validating experiences around to solidify in your
Mm.
life. And for example, my Chiron is in Gemini in the fourth house. So Gemini communication, learning, the mind, technology, travel. And then the fourth house is the home. And me growing up, this showed up with my sister, and we are 2 years apart. She is totally different than I am. We're very close now, but when we were growing up, we couldn't have been more opposite. She wanted to send me off planet in any way possible. And I had a really hard time using my voice, feeling
Yeah.
understood, um, being able to communicate my inner world. And because she was such a dominant and abusive force when I was growing up, 2 years older than me, I learned to be small. I learned that sharing my voice, my interests, my passions wasn't safe. There was a huge safety issue in my authenticity, in my original voice, in what I want to share with the world. And so as I grew up and as I had validating experiences from her and then from other partners who I attracted with like the same kind of archetype
Yeah.
that she had, I attracted romantic partners and even a business partner in that same way that shut me down and shut me up and made sure that my brilliant, magnetic, wonderful, passionate voice wasn't heard because it was a threat. And so I learned so many ways to stay small. And throughout life until very recently, or not very recently, but like the past 10 years, which like in my mind is pretty recent,
Yeah.
I did everything to not be too much, to not take up too much space, to be in the background, to not want to be the center of attention, to allow people who really needed it to be visible. So I dimmed
Mm.
my light because it was a threat to so many other people that I attracted into my life that held that same archetype that I experienced in childhood. And the reason that this is the original shadow is because it happens in childhood. You get in those most formative years the probably the biggest and deepest representation of what that shadow is, and it becomes ingrained and anchored and solidified in you. And then as you go through life, because you learned this at such a young age, you then attract those validating experiences. Like I attracted romantic partners that treated me the same way as my sister. I attracted a business partner that treated me the same way as my sister. And until I finally broke that pattern and understood what it was that was actually holding me back, that this was my original wound, and that sharing my voice is safe, that being just me on a just like base human
Mm.
level, my unique soul is safe, is okay, it's beautiful. And so many people love that. I was just attracting validating experiences of people who didn't. And that was in like romantic and business partnerships. I have a very beautiful network of women around me, of my close women that reflect me back to myself and love me and
Mm.
accept me and celebrate me. But it was in these romantic relationships and then eventually that business partnership that kept me living this like, well, yeah, these people love me, but like these people don't, and it's not okay to be seen and to be out there. So when you discover your Chiron, it's again like that feeling of feeling like the whole room illuminates and you start to see how everything is connected, and it's gonna obliterate you. I'm not
Mm.
gonna lie. I have this free report, which is amazing, and I'll give you the link to share with people,
Yeah.
but it tells you exactly your Chiron house and sign, and then what that means in terms of your shadow and how you can turn that wound into wisdom. And people have done this and said that they've cried. I mean, I get the most incredible feedback that it's this just like disarming, like, wow, it all finally makes sense, like all of
Mm.
these things that I thought was wrong with me. There was nothing wrong with me. They're just like this original wound that I then again created all of these validating experiences around, all of these coping mechanisms, and attracted this entire pattern that I, now that I'm aware of it, need to break. So once you discover that, it truly is this, like, at the core liberation, because you understand yourself. And what do we want more than anything? We want to understand ourselves. This is why we did the quizzes in Cosmo in the 80s and 90s. This is why we want astrology. We just want to understand ourselves better. Like, tell me about me so that my internal experience, my internal world can be more at ease and can be more in alignment. And so, this at the deepest level really truly helps you understand yourself so you can move into love, you can move into empowerment, and you can see that the darkness is your greatest power. Like, anyone can be good in the light. We don't gain much from the light. It's just
Yes.
you're living in the light. Like, it's great. And so many people want to be a light worker, but like, you can't be a light worker if you're not also a shadow worker. You can't have one half of duality, and you are half dark and you are half light. And as much as people don't really want to hear that, it's true. There's nothing negative about the darkness. We have a negative connotation with it because we have shame buried there. We have blame, we have guilt, we have all of these things, this trauma, this abuse that we've buried there and said, there's no fucking way I'm touching that because that is way too much, way too hard, way too scary. But when you look at your Chiron and it tells you exactly what your shadow is and all of the patterns that follow it, you get into this place of being disarmed so that you understand yourself, you love yourself, you accept yourself, and then you move into this state of freedom. And then you can say, okay, what else is there? Because obviously your Chiron isn't the only shadow. You're going to accumulate shadows through your entire life. So once you have that sorted, and it's never going to be sorted, really, it's just going to be something that you're continuously working on. And shadow work is never done. So don't ever have anyone think like, oh, I'm going to do this shadow work and then I'm going to be on my mountaintop and I'm going to be like, dun da da, everything's
Mhm.
great and I'm fine and I'm never going to deal with another thing again. Like, you will. You're going to get to that mountaintop and you're going to see that there's another one way taller in the distance that you have to descend, go through the valley, and then climb back up. So it's an ongoing process, but I am so passionate about the Chiron piece because it solves the problem of not knowing where to start in shadow work.
Yeah. I love that, like, rather than trying to, like, discover the pattern, you're like, if we look at this original one, we're kind of primed to already see these wavelengths and be able to identify more of them on that trajectory and be able to work with them easier and more efficiently, more gracefully. What are some of the processes, the practices? Like, what does a shadow work session look like for someone when you're holding a session for somebody? So somebody who's going, "Yeah, I've got stuff." They're like, I've got this stuff. What would I be doing? What is the process of working with that stuff? And how do I know when I've moved through it? Like, how do I know if I'm never going to get to the end? How do I know when it's released or when it's healed or when it's solved or when it's sorted, so to speak?
Yeah, so that last bit I want to address first because I think it is the most important. And so many people don't understand when to be done. And then you'll live in the darkness, you'll live in the shadow maybe forever, which is a really difficult place to be. People can get stuck in this cycle of shadow work, just like we get stuck in the cycle of healing. We think that we need to be in this state of perpetual healing. And I myself have been addicted to shadow work. I've been addicted to physical healing. And you then continuously think that there's something wrong with you. So, as I said, you're never going to be done with shadow work, but the symptoms will lessen. You won't have this wild, angry beast trying to break out of the dungeon of your soul anymore. The triggers will stop. The pattern you will break. Like I said, I broke that pattern and I haven't experienced that same archetype in relationships since I broke that pattern. And you start seeing these things come back online, like your joy, your jaw clenching, your holding tension in your body, like things just start to soften. And then because we're moving, in my view, in this like upward spiral through life, you're going to come back around with new eyes and a new perspective as you get into a new place in life. And this is just going to be continuously moving, and you're going to see all of your shadows, all of your light, everything from different perspectives. And then you will have healed one part, but then you'll, 10 years later, move around and see it from a different perspective and be like, okay, now that I'm this far along in my journey, it's not affecting me as much, but I see that there's something else, this tiny little pocket over here that needs to be healed. So again, the symptoms will lessen and you'll come to a place of peace and being settled and being really in command of your energy again and not living in fear. And then that perspective shift will change and come back around, but it won't usually be as consuming as
Yeah.
it was that first time that you worked on it. And the process for shadow work is going to be different for everybody. And you can do 1,000,000,000 things to start working on your shadow. One of my favorite things to do is EFT tapping, emotional freedom technique. And it really gets you out of your head into your body because the body keeps the score. Emotional trauma is physical. What you move through in life, what you go through, what you experience, traditional Chinese medicine has known this for thousands of years, is energetically stored in your body. And that can turn into physical dis-ease. So whether that is an actual disease, a cancer, a tumor, something just getting like cattywampus and out of whack, you aren't in homeostasis anymore. And your body tells you what's going on. So that's why I love EFT tapping, because it gets you out of your head, it gets you into your body. You're tapping on these meridian points, so these natural energy centers that are running through, and you're speaking not just like positive affirmations, but like you're speaking yourself through what is bothering you, and you're tapping first on the perceived negative on the karate chop point, and then you go through points on the upper body that take you to where you want to be and affirm that this is the direction. You can also do journaling. You can also do meditation. You can do psychedelics and move through a beautiful guided experience. I did a psychedelic healing session series when I was living in Denver with psilocybin, and it was a micro dose, but I had like a macro experience from it. And it was deeper than I've ever gone doing macro doses on my own, because I was guided, because I was taken through these like chambers of the soul. And that is an experience that has stuck with me and has actually shaped the way that I teach and lead and share about shadow work, because I saw it for myself in a way that I'd never have. So that allowed me to then like create this map in a sense for how I bring people through it. But you can also go to therapy. Like traditional talk therapy is really beneficial. I have like a different, I think, perspective than a lot of people maybe. I was doing talk therapy for a while and I got to this place where I was like, I'm done, like I'm done with this. I'm cycling through the same thing. We're circling around the same conversation. I'm picking the same scab over and over. I literally don't have anything to say about this, but the other than like it fucking sucks, and
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. Like my dad died, my husband went to rehab for alcohol. Everything happened all at once thanks to Uranus and Taurus. And it was one of those experiences that now looking back on it, it's almost comical. And obviously my dad dying, my husband going to rehab aren't funny, but it's comical in a sense of how many things happened all at once. And when I was in therapy, it was just like it was ridiculous. Like every therapy session I would show up with a new like outrageous thing that happened. And eventually, after my dad died and I was just moving through the grief, I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, talk therapy at this point isn't serving me. You can do EMDR. There's so many ways to go about it. I think you need to start looking within, and like I was saying, looking at those surface level triggers, those things that are already bubbling up to the surface that are easy to just like skim off the top. Like if you made a batch of broth and you're just like skimming that hardened fat layer off, like that is the easiest place. And then there's a wealth of resources for you to move through. And it is my personal mission on this planet to make shadow work mainstream, which is why I'm writing my book on it and centering my whole career on it. But there are so many people who are well versed in shadow work. And of course, we have Carl Jung to thank for the modern interpretation of shadow work. But the shadow and the darkness and the descent is nothing new. I mean, this is as ancient as time itself. We used to go into caves, into absolute darkness, and have journeys and experiences that would take us deep into ourselves. We have the myth of Inanna and Ereshkigal going into the descent into the underworld. And there are so many stories throughout time, throughout myths, that we see that shadow work is just a new word for what is as old as light, essentially, as old as humans have, as long as humans have been on this earth, we have grappled with shit. and we've had to figure it out somehow.
With shadow work, I'm curious how you define the success of it, because I think when someone hears shadow work, they're they're imagining and thinking about going into the shadow. And one of the most powerful lines when I was reading your intake form that I just like sat and read over and over was, you said true power comes from dancing with their darkness, not basking in their light. And the way that that personifies shadow work, I think it puts a clarity to it that I don't always hear practitioners having. And the fact that you started with, we want to get in, we want to work on it, and then like, stop is such an important piece. And I think those two things go together. That what I'm feeling and sensing is that not just your perspective on shadow work, but what your understanding of it really allows for the missing of that, like, catching spiral that you've described, of, like, being stuck in this process of, yes, it is a forever practice, but it's not an all-consuming forever practice, and I think that's a really hard place to be. So will you share with us a little bit more about what that success really looks like? Not just in the mitigation of the symptoms, but, like, what does dancing with the darkness mean to you, and how have you seen people benefit and receive pleasure from that and enjoy that, and like it be just as important as our ascension practices, our light practices, our offering healing practices?
Yes, this is my favorite question. And this is truly my favorite part of shadow work and why I love it so much. Because I have learned, and I will continuously always learn the dance of my darkness. And what I mean by that is that you're not fighting it. It's not something that you have to like muscle through and force through and be like, I'm going to figure you out and I'm going to break you and I'm going to bring you into the light. It's like setting a seat at your table, having a dinner party, inviting your darkness to sit down next to you and being like, "Tell me everything. I love you. I'm so happy you're here. Tell me everything." And getting to this place where the success is from, obviously, yes, of course, like I said, the not being triggered, but success is acceptance, because
Mm.
all the darkness wants, all your shadow wants is to be acknowledged and accepted, just like your light. We so easily accept the light, our triumphs, our victories, our bright lights about us, right? We're like, yes, look at me and all of these things that I'm great. And then we're like, but don't look back here. Like, I have this beautiful light shining here. And then I also cast a shadow, but don't look at that shadow. That shadow is not important. It's a whole fucking half of you. Like, it is just as important. So as you're doing shadow work, you are learning the steps of your darkness. It's going to be awkward at first. You're like getting on the dance floor and you're learning the do-si-do or the tango or like whatever, right? And you don't know what you're doing. You have two left feet. You're just stepping all over the place. You want to give up. You feel so awkward. You're embarrassing yourself. And it's just a really uncomfortable experience. And then you keep showing up and you keep doing it. And then you fall in love with the music and you're like, okay, I find the rhythm in this. I see the purpose. I can find the melody. I can start to see what this is doing, the benefit. And then eventually you'll be proficient at learning that dance, at spinning around on the dance floor with your darkness, with like this demon, right, that we have cast away into the dungeon and locked with sieves and just like the craziest locks that keep it forever kept away. And we let those go and we see that not only is this an entire half of us, but all it ever wanted was to be acknowledged and accepted. And the success that you can find is when you find that love within yourself, when the things that you used to be ashamed about, that you didn't ever want to share with anyone, that you thought were, rights for being broken up with or not having any friends or not having any close people around you because you would have admitted this thing that you've done or that you feel or that you've been hiding, or just like it truly all comes back to shame. Like the phrase that really unlocked shadow work with me about 10 years ago is, shame is the shadow of desire.
Mm.
Shame is the shadow of desire. And you're like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Why would I be ashamed of what I desire? And that was my first reaction to this phrase too. I was like, that's bullshit. And like my ego was like, nope, like that is not at all what we feel. Why would I ever be ashamed of the things that I want? Like bullshit, move on. And then I was like, girl, wait. Like
Yep.
let's play that one back. Yeah. Yep. That is actually totally true, and now it has, like, been the center of my teachings and of my personal shadow work journey. And what that means is that for the every light casts a shadow. So for everything that you want, there's 17 reasons why you think that you shouldn't have it, why you don't deserve it, why you never saw an example of it happening, why you don't think that it's something that someone like you could get or have or be or do. And so the first reaction is like, "Ooh, I want that. How great." And immediately after, I don't care what it is that you want, immediately after there's going to be a little voice in the back of your head like, but there's this and there's this and there's this and there's this and there's all these reasons why not. And that's just natural. That's the ego. That's the ego trying to keep you safe because the brain is a pattern recognition machine and the ego is its engine. And the ego says, nope, that's not safe over there. That's too big. That's too much. That's out of our comfort zone. And the brain is like, yeah, you know what? Let's just stay small. Let's stay here. Let's stay quiet. Let's stay where we know how to handle this realm. And let's not go over there into the unknown because we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. We might fail. We might die. We might have something terrible happen to us. We might be wronged. We might be hurt. All of the reasons why. So then the ego and the brain are in cahoots, and the soul is like speaking through the heart, and the heart is having little palpitations like, but I want it and I think it's great and I think
Yeah.
it would be so exciting. Like, why can't we just try? This like fluttering. And so you have to become smarter than the ego and stronger than the brain. Because if you don't, then you're always going to let that shame of what you desire run your life. And your success is deemed by being unashamed, by being unabashed, by being in absolute acceptance of the things that you thought were so ugly, were so hard about you to love, that now you lead with them. And now it's not something that you're hiding, but you're like, putting it on display like, hey, here's this really fucked up thing that I thought was really bad and I didn't want anyone to know. Now I'm going to tell you about it immediately because I'm actually so proud of it. And look at how great I am now that I've accepted this and how much more embodied I am because, like I said, anyone can live in the light. It's when you come out of the darkness holding something that you thought you could never love about yourself, and nonetheless that someone else would never love about you too. And you have it right next to you, and you're like, this is me. Sup? Like, that's it. Yeah, so the acknowledgement is really the gateway. That is the point that is the hardest, I think, to get to, because then you really have to say, this happened and I'm just accepting that, because what we do is we deny it and we keep it away, right? And so we're ignoring it. We're pretending like it didn't happen. And for an example, like if it's something that happened with a parent, just really accepting it. But we're not working on getting rid of the shadow, if that makes sense. We're not like taking out the trash. We're not filling a bag up and donating it to Goodwill or a women's shelter from our closet, right? It's not about the purge. There is no getting rid of anything that happens to you in life. It is coded, it is in you. The goal is to integrate, is to find a way to hold and heal and live vibrantly, because what the shadow does, it dims our light. The bigger the shadow, the heavier the darkness, the more we ignore it, the longer we ignore it for, the less and less light we'll be able to access. It will eventually be a black hole. This is why Love, Light, and Black Holes is my podcast, is my book, is my whole process, because it is duality, but that black hole, and just like the literal physics of a black hole, is it consumes everything. It is voracious. It does not discriminate. It is this all-consuming force. So if you ignore your shadow, if you only accept your shadow and you don't integrate it, you are on the event horizon of the black hole, risking being sucked in and consumed forever. And that much light will be gone from you. You will not be able to access, to shine, to feel safe in relaxing, and unclenching your jaw and removing the tongue from the top of your mouth and moving your shoulder blades down your back. Like, you won't be able to do that to the depth of actually like its potential unless you integrate it. So that's what I mean by like you're learning to dance with your darkness, but then you're also setting a seat at your table for your darkness and you're inviting it into the light. You're integrating it into your life. You are bringing it into your day to day. And I'm not saying like you have to lead with your greatest trauma whenever you meet someone. Like, I don't want to talk about the weather, but I also don't need to be like, oh yeah, so in childhood, blah, 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 within 10 seconds of meeting someone. It's more of the way you carry yourself. It's more of the safety that you feel within yourself, the safety that you feel with carrying your darkness and holding it and integrating it. And it's like this puzzle piece that you have right here. And when you are avoiding your darkness, when you're ignoring it, when it's that demon locked in the dungeon, you have this empty puzzle piece that neither light nor darkness can fill. It is the black hole. When you place that puzzle piece of your shadow here, and you say, okay, this piece fits here and I'm going to walk around with this. I'm going to accept this part about myself and I'm going to integrate it into who I am and how I show up. Then that like snap, brilliant, and then there was light. Like it is this piece that has been missing, that was sucking all light in, wasn't shining anything out. And once you place that in and you integrate it and you accept it and you live with it and you include it in the way that you act and show up, in the way that you treat other people, in the way that you treat yourself, in the way that you address and look at other triggers and other patterns, then you move into this place of integration. And I think integration is such a broad stroke word. Like, what does that mean practically? How do I actually integrate it? Like, what are the steps? The main step is just showing up every day bigger, because you have that within you. So like, let's say you go through a medicine experience or psilocybin or just like a really big breakthrough in your healing. Then what do you do after that? You take those lessons, you leave the trauma, you leave the rest, but you take the lessons and you start integrating that into your life. So maybe you communicate better. Maybe you call yourself out. Maybe you say what you feel in the moment instead of bottling it down and not perpetuating that shadow that was there. Maybe when you were little, like for my Gemini Chiron in the fourth house, with my husband now, with my partner, I bring things up in the moment. I don't let them fester. I don't let it go weeks or months away. And then I'm like, oh, hey, there was that time. And it's like, A of all, you missed your window to bring this shit up. And B of all, like it has stewed, it has increased, it has gained power. So integration looks like taking action. And it's not just like walking around being like, I'm integrated. It's like changing your fucking behavior, changing your patterns, calling yourself out when you are reverting back to old ways, old mindsets, old beliefs, and just like old dusty ass shit. And being like, nope. I recognize that I'm doing that. I understand that this is a well worn path, but I'm climbing out of it and I am choosing to be different. Uh-huh. Yeah, if you don't change anything, nothing changes. You can have the most beautiful psilocybin journey. You can go into the jungles of Peru and have a week-long ayahuasca ceremony, but what are you going to do when you get back? What changes are you going to make after you do that descent that makes the light brighter, that makes the darkness more bearable, more filled with love? Like, what are you, like, exactly what are you going to change? No. Yeah. As a practitioner, I feel like shadow work needs to become a lifestyle. It needs to become something that you call yourself out immediately, you call the problem out immediately, you see the pattern, the trigger, the issue immediately. And just like I said, you get in, you get out, you get on with your life. Because when you do this in real time. And it's not only something where I'm like, okay, everyone, it's fall. We're going to channel Hecate and leave an offering for her and go into the darkness and do a descent. That's like a once a year, like deep dive. As a practitioner, it's hygiene. I brush my teeth, I wash my hair sometimes. I do my shadow work, and it is something that has to be in real time, continuous, and in a process that isn't all consuming. Like, of course, sometimes something really big comes up and I'm like, I need to just like go in. And other times I'm like, I just need to have a quick conversation. I just need to journal for a little bit. I need to do some tapping and just like move this energy through, because just like going to the gym, the more momentum you have, the more often you do it, the more the easier it is to stay in that space when you stop, when you take a break, when you just like get out of this routine. It's a lot harder to get back into it. So just never let that momentum die. Just even if it's just tiny, just a 2-second, like, oh, you know what? I did say that and that did come from this place and I really didn't mean it that way. And I'm going to go talk to this person. Or someone said that to me and it totally brought up this trigger. And now I realize that my reaction to that was because of this thing that I haven't resolved. And just like, whoop, like, just clean it up. Just clean it up real quick, rather than having to have these huge, deep, like, hour-long ceremonies with yourself. Like, I love that. Do that, maybe quarterly, but like, it's kind of like microdosing, like do the 4 on, 3 off, like that you keep this momentum. And then once a quarter, like go really big deep dive, like fully flesh everything out and have that purge. But otherwise, it's just like a maintenance dose. You're just like, you're getting in, you're getting out, you're getting on with it, you're calling yourself in, you're calling yourself out. And you feel like this, like, it's like this, like in my body, it feels like this, like, bing, like this Tinkerbell, like, ding, like you've got it. Like it's just like bunk. Like I don't know why for me it's a sound, but it's like, it's really like, it's just like clean. It's like this resonant bell that's like, it's coherence. And that's really what we're after, because the heart obviously wants to live in coherence. And when the heart is in coherence, the whole body just like organizes by that. And continuous shadow work in the sense that you're just like, oh, I noticed that. I'm calling it in. Okay, I get it. I understand where that came from. I know why I did that. I know why they did that. I know why this bothered me. Done. I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to take my dog for a walk. I'm going to do some fucking dishes. Like, then you just like get on with your life. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's the loving piece that is the most important. Like in the 80s, we went to Disneyland and I was on like a child leash. Like I had like a little backpack and it like had a leash on it. And as we grew up, my sister and I would be like, Mom, like you put us on a leash? Like, how could you? Like, how barbaric? And she's like, losing you would have been way worse. And it's that same idea. Like, I'm keeping you on a short leash, not for control, for proximity and safety and love. Something terrible. Yeah. 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 For sure, and especially the Chiron piece, it's essentially reparenting. You're giving yourself what you didn't get when you were little because you didn't know. and no one else did either. And now that you know, you can do better and you can go back in time and you can heal on that level and bring those lessons forward, because then you have this different relationship with your past when you do inner child work. I truly believe, and quantum physics is proving this, that all time exists at all times, right? We live in a linear path on planet Earth in the 3D, but like really, like it's all intermingled, it's all happening at once. So, and it's been proven by science and by quantum physics that when you heal something in the present, it heals something in the past. So when you are doing inner child healing now, reparenting work now, you will have a different memory of your past. Like, of course, not if you experienced abuse and traumatizing situations and really terrible shit, but you will at least have a greater sense of peace with yourself because you didn't know better. You couldn't do better. You didn't have the help and support to bring you into what you actually needed. And now that you're older, you can do that for yourself. And I know you have a child, I don't, but that is also the greatest inner child healing that you can do. I've heard when you have a kid, everything comes up and you get this opportunity, and I say opportunity very specifically, very consciously, very intentionally, to heal parts of yourself too. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Well, and that's super valid to be upset that you're not getting it, but it's also so affirming that that is the exact reason why you're giving it, why you are creating this specific environment for this little human, because it is everything that you didn't have. Yes, yes, yes. We have been spending a lot of time in the darkness, in the acceptance. The afterglow is something that so many people don't talk about shadow work, and it is quite possibly the most beautiful piece of it, because when you're doing shadow work, you're doing the descent, you're learning the dance, you're bringing this aspect of self love, and you're doing hard work. I mean, the word work and shadow work is there for a reason. It is work. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say it's just about sitting there and loving yourself. Like, you have to dig and unearth and refertilize. It is work. But, and dun da da, once you get to the other side of that, you become magnetic as fuck. You realize that you are in this space that you are just like, your Taurus field is just like popping. There's no holes in your aura. You are so grounded in who you are and why you are, because you understand yourself on a level that you never have before. That creates this magnetism. And I'm not talking about manifesting. This goes way beyond your vision board. This is like magnetism, effortless, automatic, instantaneous magnetism, which I call the afterglow. This is what we get as like the pot of gold at the end of the grayscale rainbow. That is everything that we've ever wanted. Everything that you want, everything that you desire is on the other side of shadow work. It's on the other side of shame. It's on the other side of looking at your shit and accepting it and loving yourself. We don't do shadow work to get what we want, right? It's just a beautiful gift at the end of the line that we become this person who so authentically accepts and embodies who we are, that sends a signal out that is more magnetic than writing affirmations 369, than making a vision board, than I am a money magnet, like all of that shit. Like that is going to instantaneously be shot down by the ego and by the brain that don't believe internally that that is safe or that that is even true. It's like looking in the mirror and being like, I'm a millionaire. I am a millionaire. When you have like negative $3,000 in your bank account, there are so many reasons that are encoded in your body. They're going to say that is not true. So you're wasting your time and your breath. When you integrate the shadow, when you love the shadow, when you are fully authentic, authentic vibrates in my mind higher than love, because you have to be authentic to love. So that comes first, like authenticity. And then I'm going to love that, right? I don't love and then be authentic. It's like I'm authentic. And if I can't love that, then love is never going to come with yourself, with other people. The piece that I think is truly like the most important is that, yes, you do shadow work. You get in, you get out, you get on with it. And what you're getting on with is your magnetism, is everything that you wanted, is a love that you've never could have experienced before from someone else, because you're giving it to yourself first and you're no longer looking for someone to complete you. You're complete. And you're like, whoever comes into this is going to amplify. I'm not filling any holes. So that is truly like the most exciting piece of shadow work for me, is the afterglow. And that is the primary basis on what all of my offerings and teachings are. And this is something that I'm creating right now. I'm creating like a really dope 8-week container called the Afterglow that focuses on that. Like, yes, we're going to go into the descent and the darkness. Yes, we're going to learn that dance and be awkward and weird at first and step on our own feet. But then, and what is the whole point, is that we are going to be so authentically embodied that everything that comes after that is going to be like this automatic magnetism. So go through the darkness, do the work, be totally committed to it, and you will be rewarded. And this isn't like the universe rewards people who do shadow work. Like, the universe doesn't give a shit about what you're doing. It doesn't have negative and positive. It doesn't have morals and values. The universe has energy and frequency. And if you are doing the energy work to raise your frequency and become this person who is so authentically embodied, that amplifies out and then brings back to you what you want. The universe isn't like, check, Morgan did her shadow work, she's being a good girl today. Like, it doesn't give a shit. You know, I hear so many people be like, I'm being tested by the universe. And I'm like, that is incredibly narcissistic for you to think that the universe gives one flying fuck about what you are individually doing. Like, this is energy and frequency and vibration. It is not like you get a gold star and now you get a treat. You know, I think that might be like a really harsh way of thinking about it. Really harsh saying that, but I think it's the Taurus tough love that people need to hear. Like, the universe doesn't give a shit about you. It really doesn't. The universe does not have your back. I love you, Gabby Bernstein. The universe has your frequency. The universe has your vibration, and whatever you're at, that's what you're going to get back. We want to be approved of, right? We are wired to seek approval because approval means integration and acceptance by a community. And if we are alone, we are vulnerable, it is dangerous. If we are part of a greater community, then we have a greater chance of survival. This is like ingrained in our beings as humans who came from these dark, disconnected times. And now that we don't have that same kind of threat, that doesn't mean that that wiring goes away. We still seek approval. So, and of course, definitely, like you said, the organized religion piece where we have this man, this figure who is going to smite us personally if we do not follow the rules and follow the values and morals, or we'll go to hell. That is a really hard thing to unravel and to rewire in terms of thinking about the universe as a whole and your part in it as just a wave of energy rather than like this one person to appease to and to please. So fucked up. Yes. Yes, go to shadowwork.lovelightandblackholes.com and I'll give you this link so you can link it down below. And then that report is free. All you need is your birthday, time, and place. And if you don't have your time, that's okay. You just won't get the house placement. You'll get the sign, which is like a good amount. But if you do have your time, that's ideal because that'll give you the house. And then you'll be able to get into like the nitty gritty of what your shadow is and how to work with it and how it can actually be your power. And then the other link I'll give you, Lindsay, is the waitlist for my Afterglow program, which is starting soon. And yay, I'll come and give more information on that. But my book is coming out spring 2027. And that feels like eons away right now. But I'm wrapping up the final bits of it now and then sending it off to the publisher. Just so grateful to be able to share this magic. I know. Yay! Shadow work is truly my passion. And I hope by listening to this conversation, you've at least got a little seed planted that feels more curious than fearful, because that's exactly what opens up the beautiful Pandora's box of not terrible things, but beautiful things that can truly change your life for the better. Mm. Yeah. So well said. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Lindsay. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to share about shadow work, love, light, and black holes.